Okay.
Oh, hello, or welcome back to Growing Up Alien. And today we have a much awaited guest on our show, Paul Hyman. And I learned about Paul from a friend, this referral sort of thing. And Paul and I met last week where I was able to experiment with some of his techniques, his post-traumatic stress disorder, trauma healing somatic style techniques. And Ika was able to try them as well, and he had great success. And both of us are still holding steady a week later. So that's great news as far, we're looking for, some unique and simple ways that our community, so the victims of the Milabs, the victims of abduction, the victims of MKUltra, are able to find some kind of relief for these attacks, these memories. We are a unique community, and I always say that the SSP, MKUltra, MyLab community is extremely underrepresented in many areas for obvious reasons. You're not going to walk into a healing center or counselor and tell them that the government is putting implants in your head, or our usual stories that we're so used to hearing between ourselves. It doesn't generally resonate sometimes in these other more, we say deep state arenas, as Paul is also familiar with. So I'm going to hand this over to Paul now, and he can give us a little history of how he got into the healing fields, his methodology, his philosophy, and some of his significant life experiences that sent him, as I think for our community, these significant life experiences that set us on our path. So, welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you, Andrea. Good to see you again and welcome everybody. It is a real treat to share this with you. This is my passion. This is my humanitarian mission that I just want to give this out to everyone. And I've been in the healthcare field for over 30 years. And what I have to say is, in all these years, I've never known a program anywhere that focused on prevention or reduction of traumatic stress. Usually, post-traumatic stress, PTSD kicks in 5, 10, 15 years after the event. A person ruminates about it, they think about it, and I can tell you, people that are dealing with that, it is not a very pleasant experience. So I started working with this because I was a therapist for 10 years at a huge mental health and recovery center. And I noticed my clients had a very difficult time taking in information. And these are psychosocial educational sessions. And they were going in one ear and coming out the other ear. There was no retention of this information that was critical to their recovery. So that got me curious. And I was looking for something to help these people focus. So these skills is for the immediate moment of a crisis. I mean, you're in the right place, wrong time. It happens that quickly. Now, these skills are not for everything, but they offer something when there's nothing. And I've done a lot of training with healthcare professionals, say first responders also. Even if you dial 911, you're going to wait a while, maybe up to 20 minutes. And I've talked to first responders and I, jokingly said, well, when a 911 calls, as committed as they are, you guys are already late to the party. So I wanted to create something fast. Now, my clients, I had to do the skills, they all take 2 minutes because they were so in need of some immediate relief from the pain that they were suffering. So I started looking at this, looking at characteristics that they were presenting to me, and that led me to writing a research paper priorizing ADD, ADHD characteristics. And that became a model of mine because the number one characteristic, if you want to write it down, procrastination. Do it today. The second one was poor self-esteem. So I wanted to have something that they were empowered. They could do this on their own anytime. And then the third characteristic was impatience. They wanted it immediate. So that got me going. And many years later, well, I was using these techniques, and later on, Harvard did a 10-year study with preschoolers, and they found that preschoolers that had experienced or seen violence and been put in that situation, by the time they were 12 and 13, they were starting to self-medicate either with alcohol and other substances. Then the University of Pittsburgh Medical School, they came up with a study with adolescents, teenagers, and they found that these individuals with ADD, ADHD had a significant higher rate of substance abuse. So I kind of went ADD addictions, and it just felt so in place. Now, after doing that, I had the opportunity, I don't know if you call it opportunity or serendipity or it was meant to be. I became the very first male children's facilitator at Canada's first shelter for women and children of domestic violence. I wanted to go there to help these children because I was at ground zero. At this hospital for 10 years, I can't tell you the number of people that confided in me horrific, horrific, horrific childhood trauma. And it just stayed with them. And what I found was these skills work so well that these people had the confidence to share with me what was going on for them. Now, the thing is, I was not doing trauma therapy in a 3-week program, 21 days. But the skills worked so well, these people would practice them, and then they begin to talk about their childhood trauma with the confidence that they're not going to have a meltdown. Therefore, they knew they were better in control, that if anything emotionally came up, they could put the brakes on. However, knowing that these skills work so quickly, they could go further, farther, and faster. So with these little children, I was usually working with 4 to 12-year-olds, and I had a great time with them because one of the first skills is around awareness. So awareness is all about, and you might want to write this down. This is a Paul Hyman quote. If you're not aware, you can't take care. It's as simple as that. And being aware could be your mental, emotional state. It could be your physical state. It could be your behavioral state. It's great to have all three or awareness of all three, but even if you have one and you know you need to sort of balance yourself. But working with a 4-year-old, I was doing these skills with them, and I'd say, so after doing the techniques, how do you feel? Nothing.
Yeah, I love this. I love this.
And I said, and I said, is that a good nothing or a bad nothing? And this little 4-year-old would say, good. So in their experience, they noticed a shift. And
Yeah,
that was so important because what was amazing that with the shelter, these little children could teach their mothers. You can just imagine the mothers looking for new housing, employment, everything, putting their life back together again. And this was such a great thing to see the children and the mothers together putting the pieces of their life together more peacefully. And that is why I designed this program. So it's so simple. You're working with somebody, a 5-year-old, who doesn't have the concept of what all of this is about, nor do they care. And when I say about immediate relief in a crisis, you can't talk, you can't think, you're just completely turned upside down. And this is when you can do these skills because it's based on the concept of neuroplasticity. And that is the more you fire the brain, the more you wire the brain. So you can develop a greater neural pathways for a wider and wider and wider resiliency net. The benefit is you land softer and you spring back faster. So, anyways, I did that. And then for 17 years, I offered a very exclusive private service to high profile individuals that did not want the public to know what they were doing behind closed doors. And you can imagine what they were doing.
all right, right.
So, so my specialty is managing chaos in a crisis. And I was working with people all over the world. And this, like I said, 17 years ago, this was before Zoom. I could talk these people down. I can teach them these exercises, email them these exercises. And that's the work I did for 17 years. When 2020 came about, my heart broke. I was just, well, this is why I'm doing the work I'm doing, because this world is went into chaos. And that was my specialty or is my specialty. And I just said, these skills work so quickly, I have to do something. Now, the thing is, I was anonymous as my service to these other individuals. It was called Peng 911. Peng is a Chinese symbol that means peace, harmony, and balance. And everyone knows what 911 is: disaster, crisis. So the thing is, I had a tagline: your Peng's anonymity protects your privacy because in the future, Peng never existed.
All right, right.
So, so you had to know somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody that knew me. So I was called like the ghost, the midnight rider, uh, an urban legend because I came in, took care of what I had to do, and then just disappear. And these clients got on with their life. So I'm going to teach you today a couple of the beginning skills. There's 13 altogether, and these are some of the skills I taught Andrea. And you're going to have tools that you can feel better in 2 minutes. I guarantee that. And the beauty of the way this program is set up, you can layer one skill on top of another skill on top of another skill because I'm coming in with no plan. Because as soon as you go down that rabbit hole, anything can happen in a blink of an eye. So, the very first thing I'd like to talk to you about, I got some cards here, is awareness. Now, you're pretty aware of your foot stepping on some nails or tacks. But this is the key piece. This is called the emotional rationality teeter-totter. And how this works is as the emotions go up, rationality goes down. Now, how many of you can relate to maybe impulsive buying in a sale? You go out and you see, oh, this is unbelievable. It's 50% off. Look, I can get this new chair for $1,000, but it's only 500. But still, you're spending 500. So what I have here is the scales. So this is what you're talking about of using these skills. As soon as you feel all of this pushing down on you, your emotions go right up off the scale. So this is very important, and it's something that's very key to empowering yourself is to be aware of every single moment. And I have another little example of this. As Andrea was saying, we come into this world, however we come into this world, and let's just say where for the demo, we come in with an empty cup. In this cup is life. And all of a sudden, it goes into the cup. Are you aware of this much life in your cup? Maybe, maybe not. Anyways, life keeps coming. Are you aware of this much life in your cup? Maybe, maybe not. And the research has said that people that have been traumatized, they actually reset that point. Therefore, a lot of times they're unaware of this cup filling up. So eventually, life comes at you, and eventually, as it fills up, what's going to happen next, everyone?
Oh,
Come on.
you got a problem, right? You got to get the
All of a sudden,
you got to get a mop out. Yeah.
yeah, get the mop out. Thank you, Andrea. It takes just one drop. I'm sure you can relate to the fact that there's been things in your life that in the big picture of your life really didn't matter. But in that moment, your cup was completely to the brim, and that one incident threw you over the edge. And instead of getting a mop, I'm going to teach you some skills. So, thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, that's
So, what we're talking about is being aware of your cup like this, and then you do the skills and empty it. The cup fills up again, and you empty it. Now, the beauty of this is that doing these skills wire your brain for greater resiliency. So you can have one of these days and you don't overflow. So with this, the very first skill I like to suggest is water. Now remember, this is absolute chaos. I've taught this to many, many health professionals. However, the first thing you want is to have water. So if you've got water available, great. If not, please, at another time, get water.
You say pause the video, go get yourself some nice clean water and structured water,
Okay.
and then start the video back up, and you're good. So well,
Okay.
and you're good to go. Yes, yes.
Okay. So I've got some water.
Yep.
Now, the thing is, with water, there's a couple really important characteristics in terms of how and why you use it in an immediate crisis situation. And that is water actually balances out our electrolyte balance, that we can have a certain polarity between the cells. So it's minus 70 millivolts inside the cell, plus 70 millivolts outside the cell. When somebody is in shock, the electrolyte balance is shot. That's why when first responders arrive and they're taking you to the hospital or taking somebody to the hospital, the very first thing they put into you is an IV drip, saline solution, that sodium potassium to balance out the electrolytes. Because if the electrolytes drop to minus 30 plus or minus and stays there for any length of time, you are going to pass away. So water is one of the balance. The other thing is that water actually bonds with hemoglobin, which transports oxygenated blood throughout the whole body. And in my interest with all of this is that high altitude, talking about the people that go for Mount Everest,
Right.
or there's 14 peaks in the world over 8,000 meters. What they have found, experienced climbers that are well hydrated outperform other climbers that are less hydrated or dehydrated on bottled oxygen. So these people that are highly hydrated can outperform people that are climbing 8,000-meter peaks with bottled oxygen and outperform them. And that's why these individuals carry two little stoves. Because when you're up in the so-called death zone, the last thing you want to have happen to you is one of your stove doesn't work. You know, you're attempting to melt some ice and snow. So I got a picture here of water and
Yeah.
a person in the tent melting some snow or ice to keep hydrated. So it's so important to have the hydration, and it hits your system so quickly. When you look at this, this is before water. So the blue is your beta state. Your red is your alpha state, your state of relaxation. When you look at the after water, you can see a significant increase of beta. So you're more alert, but at the same time, you've got an increase of alpha, which is your relaxation. You're more relaxed.
And
Therefore,
that's where you want to be when you're trying to remote view or telepath. That's that's the state you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
you want to be in the zone. You
Exactly.
want to, and I can tell you, teaching performing artists or
Yeah.
anybody really,
Yeah. 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 Right.
they do these skills as part of their routine, and they get to a place where it's so wired in, they can drop into the zone in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so everybody,
Oh, we got our
get your water.
cheers. Cheers,
Cheers to your
all.
health.
Cheers upstairs. There's
And truly carry some water. Now, in terms of neuroplasticity, it's been around forever. The difference is we have new medical diagnostic tools to measure the brain in a variety of different ways, give out different feedback. But if you want to know about neuroplasticity, you can do it right now if you like. If you're wearing a pair of shoes, and I'm not talking about Velcro, I'm, ta- I'm talking laced up shoes. How long did it take you to learn how to tie your shoes? However, if you want to relive being 3 years of age, untie your shoes and go back. And instead of, for myself, holding the laces with my left hand and then tying it with my right hand, I would like all of you to attempt to do the opposite. Hold it with your right hand
that's
and use your left hand to tie the laces and see how well you do.
right.
That's why I say the more you do, the less you need. It takes that repetitiveness, and that's why these 2-minute exercises just work fantastic. A couple other examples of neuroplasticity is how many of you have ever attempted to write your name with your opposite hand? Now, it takes a while before you can work within those little lines to put your signature. If you switched over to your other hand, I'm sure you might not even be able to recognize your name. Another one is, have you ever attempted to use chopsticks? Because I lived in Asia for 9 years, and you go to these big banquets, big round table, all these dishes are coming around, and I'd have my chopsticks and I'd miss it. And then I'd move around, I'd miss it.
Oh,
I'd miss it. I went home because 9 years in Hong Kong or in Asia, you eat a lot of food with chopsticks. So I went home and got to a level where I was picking up peanuts
wow. Okay.
and then working to pick up two peanuts at the same time, or picking up a coin with the chopsticks. Eventually, I was able to eat at some of these banquets. I
Yeah.
was able, yeah, this is tasting really, really good. And my last little piece, and I don't want to mix up your walking pattern, but have you ever thought about which leg you use to walk up a set of stairs? Have you ever been aware of which leg, when you're walking, you always lead with? That's ingrained in our brain from a long time ago. What I'd like you to do is switch it up a little bit. So the next time, well, as you get up and walk away from this podcast, lead with the other leg. When you're walking upstairs, before you automatically use your dominant leg, switch it up and use your non-dominant leg. So everybody's had water. The next skill is called the meridian connection. And it's so simple because I've designed it for children and adults, but this is in crisis. You cannot process what just happened. You're horrified. Things that you never believed is possible just happened in a blink of an eye. So I call this the meridian connection because in Chinese traditional medicine, all the acupuncture points start and stop at the hands and the feet. So I'm going to walk you through this, everybody. And what I have here is a little tiny, it's not an hourglass, it's a minute glass.
Minute.
60, 60 seconds, okay? I've said these skills work within 2 minutes. So what I'd like you all to do is cross one ankle over the other. So extend your legs straight out in front, cross one ankle over the other, and I'll show you a variation of this. Now, arms are straight out in front of you, thumbs are up. Rotate your hands inward so your thumbs point down. Cross your left arm over your right. Patty cake, patty cake. Interlock your fingers. Good. And then just roll them down and around and rest them on your chest. Now, drop your shoulders if they're up a little bit. You can move around a little bit, get your shoulders down. And as you're doing this, notice if you have a tendency to put the tongue on the roof of your mouth. So tongue on the roof of your mouth. No, no, stay like that, Andrea.
I can do it again.
Okay, so thumbs are up, everybody. Tuck yourself in.
Back in. Yeah.
And here we go, everybody. 60 seconds.
The Pleiadian attention span.
Yeah, it's not 60 seconds, but
It's
as you can
less.
see.
It's less.
So hang out with this, everybody. And notice your breathing. You might notice a big in breath or a big out breath. Once you notice a shift in your breathing, we're going to change it up a little bit. However, the reason we're doing this is when people have been traumatized, and I mean, I'm talking chaos. The last thing you want to do is get them to breathe. I mean, they're breathing anyways. Now, that's 1 minute. Cross your other ankle over, everybody. So switch up your ankles. You can do it with your hands, but just one ankle, okay? So here's your second minute. Notice how you're feeling, breathing. And as you're doing this, remember, in trauma care, you've got to get the person connected back in the body. Breathing, either they're hyperventilating or they're just staring. And that's why water is also really good because remember, it improves the oxygenation throughout the whole body with hemoglobin. So if all of this, it enhances their breathing. So there we go. That's 2 minutes, everybody. Notice how you feel now.
Yeah.
Okay, now, a couple other variations because particularly if you're sleeping and something dramatic happens to you, you feel like you're being under attack. And okay, you can do this lying in bed.
Right.
And this is another variation for children also, is to take your right hand, cross it over to your left shoulder. Take your left hand, cross it over to your right shoulder. Again, you've crossed your ankles. So you're lying in bed. Again, notice if you have the tongue on the roof of your mouth, or it's probably already there.
Well, I'm going to say for folks, that's where it should be when you're trying to astral travel, remote view, or telepath. You want to place your tongue on the roof of the mouth.
Okay, okay, wonderful. So just you're like this, and as you're doing this, just notice your breathing. And if you want, you can reverse your hands. It gets so wired into your system that without you even having to do this, you can think about doing this and you're in the zone. Another variation is you can take your hands out again, thumbs up, rotate it inwards, cross left or right over. Okay, interlock your fingers. Now, instead of going like this, just rest your hands on your lap. And breathing. And the beauty of this is you can do this anywhere.
Right. I'm saying.
Nobody is going to see you.
Right. Yeah.
And like I said, when I was working at this big hospital for 10 years, you go to these meetings and they said, oh, we got to cut like $10 million out of the budget. Okay. You know what that means. You might not have a job. So you're just sitting there, breathing, taking it all in, and you're not getting yourself worked up and ruffled. Okay. So that's the first skill. Water, the meridian connection. Now, the next one, once you have this going on and you feel your breathing slowing down and you get that big breath, you get that, then notice your breathing. And the next one is called sternum focus. This comes out of biofeedback. And what you're going to do is take one hand, everybody, place it on your chest. Notice the temperature of your hand. You know, sometimes when you've been really nervous or afraid, you have wet, clammy, cold hands. So just notice the temperature of your hand. And now soften your hand. Just let it sink into your chest. Now move your thumb, move your index finger, move your middle finger, move your ring finger, move your little finger. So you just feel the imprint of your fingers. Now take your other hand and place it on your belly button. And this is going back developmentally as children. This is our first connection to life, the umbilicus. And there's a huge nerve plexus center around your belly button. So just place your hand on your belly button. And now as you're breathing, just allow your hand to go for a ride. And you can just feel your hand rising and falling with your breath. And like I said, what you're doing is firing and wiring. So take your hand away and place it back on your chest. And you probably have landmarked it in the same spot. And this is great because you're aware. Maybe all you need to do is go and you're back. Hand on your belly button. Now, as I said, you can layer these skills. So here we go, everybody. Take your hands away. So we're going to just do a quick review in our time. You got your water
Yeah.
ready? Okay, so here we go. Just notice how you're feeling. Have some water, everybody. Cheers. Now, cross one ankle over the other again for the meridian connection. And what I'd like you to do with your ankles crossed, hands out in front, and it's your choice if you want to touch your shoulders, but hands out in front, rotate your thumbs down, cross your arms, patty cake, interlock your fingers, tuck them down and around, rest them on your chest, drop your shoulders, and breathing. And as you start to feel yourself dropping slower and slower and slower into the zone, you can combine this now with the sternum focus. Keep your hands clasped, only this time become aware with your hands like this, the rise and fall of your hands with each breath. You can cross your other ankle over or not. You're dropping into that zone. And you have now done 3 of the 13 better mental health skills in a crisis.
Yeah.
That's it. And what I like to say to everybody, you
Oh,
just Hymanized. You just Hymanized yourself. My name is Paul Hyman. But the key piece, though, and this was my Ping logo that I used for 17 years. You can see the 911, but the symbol of Ping is way in the background. I was, like I said, an urban legend. And I say it's fun, functional understanding, not necessary. Because a person in crisis, do they care? No. If you can provide what I just taught you and feel where you're feeling right now in 2 minutes, that's all that matters. A little 5-year-old's not going to be able to explain neuroplasticity or whatever. Is there anything we've done that a 5-year-old couldn't teach you? And that is the work I do.
yeah.
So it's great. Thank you, Andrea.
It's a
For,
Pleiadian level skill set, a 5-year-old. Pleiadian level attention span, 60 seconds. So it's Ika's favorite is this one. And
okay, yeah.
he uses it now. It says it's worked really well for him. He was in states, as you'd mentioned, that complete catatonic state, like just staring, like full on.
Yeah.
And but he uses this one now to tease me when I'm doing something he doesn't like. So now, or I'm watching something he doesn't like. So he's just be like, he's traumatized. He's trying to reset. So that's his name. This is just, I'm like, just but for folks who aren't part of the SSP or the Milab, or have been through all of the intense torture that many of those folks have been in, these are great
Yes.
techniques. Very, if you don't like to meditate, but these are great techniques to get you to understand the feel. It's hard to teach psychic skills, psionics, because it's all about feel and where your brain is, where your state of your wave state is. So these are simple things for people to practice with, get into that state. It's a brainwave state. And what they'll do, and this is all neuroplasticity. So you spent all your life with neuroplasticity, wiring in all the bad stuff. Now you're wiring it. So this way,
Yes.
they can begin to quickly, really wire in that state that they desire because they want to be better at remote viewing or telepathy. And they'll be able to feel what it's like, just like the musicians, just like sports people, just like, anyone. and you can click into that state very quickly and access information that you want. So
Yes.
it's, a win-win.
You it's like your energy is more
Oh,
open
yeah.
and
Yeah.
you pick up so much more
Yeah.
when you're just
Oh,
there.
absolutely. I mean, I know, and I can say for Ika, who's been through severe, 15 years of military warfare, terrible things, severe trauma, just the cup, he had a full cup and it just blew up basically. He put it in the microwave and it's, so people who are currently undergoing stress and trauma and people who just want to, come home and relax. Um, or before they go for walks in the woods, just to get into that. You will notice, as you just mentioned, Paul, that a very aware, awake. It's funny. You're relaxed, but you're super awake. I personally
Yes.
notice better sleep, which for me is so people who have trouble sleeping, try it, see if you notice better sleep. So we actually wanted, so Paul and I have been talking about this. I want to run this as an experiment now, and we're going to meet again, and you're going to show folks other techniques as well, so they can try
Yes.
these.
Yes.
But we want to see if this is mitigating your targeting from the government agents. Do you notice if you do this, is it mitigating targets? I haven't been targeted in a week. Um,
Great.
right. So we're going to see that. We're going to see how this applies to folks. Do you notice it either mitigates or stops targeting from these people? Because again, this is using your brain waves as a shield. So this is all quantum science, right? Do you notice that it mitigates or stops it? So what we want folks to interact with us and write this in the comments or email me, as the case may be. Do you notice that if you are attacked, the attacks aren't as bad? Do you notice that you bounce back from the attacks a lot faster? Um, do you
Yes.
notice that this is assisted with your ability to telepath? Whatever you notice after these somatic techniques, definitely comment and write some stuff in the comments because Paul, I know your goal and my goal is to try to help. You have a wider goal, obviously mine's more narrow, but it's like we want to take the aspects of more conventional, or this may be non-conventional, depending on your idea of, I mean, what's to, right? But to really offer this to people in our community where they have a great, safe experience where they can talk about these things, um,
Yes.
and try to move forward from, we have a lot of suicides and things like that in our community. Again, because we're in a war and folks are being voice to skull and all kinds of different things, but decades of traumatic, starting with childhood, extreme childhood torture with these organizations that did this to people as children, and then throughout their life, intermittent or persistent attacks. So, yeah, let's see if we can try to break that up. So for sure. But,
Andrea, so I have just a couple comments. One is back to the water.
so right.
Now, if you're not aware, you can't take care. So I like to leave you with keep your cup half empty. Okay.
Yes, brilliant.
And the other last little thing
Ah,
is this is life. And many times in life, I'm sure you all know, it can take a twist. And that twist can take even another twist and getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And you're wondering, how can I get out of this knot? Well, using these skills, you can easily and quickly release it
yeah,
and come back to balance.
yeah, yeah. It's brilliant.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. I look forward to seeing you again.
And thank you, Paul. And in the, I know you're getting a new website, but in the interim, I'm going to put in the not discussion, the description section, links to your website and where you offer people free tools based upon what we did today. And yeah, that's a brilliant thing. And looking forward to having you back on again for our part two in this series of clearing out the
Th
clutter.
th
Okay.
yeah, because the thing is,
Yeah.
what makes this so unique, it's a movement-based multi-sensory brain stimulation program. Everything that I taught you today, you can teach anybody without saying a word. It's universal. That's why I designed it, because you don't have to do anything other than, sorry, you don't have to do anything except demonstrate, and you can teach this to anybody in the world. And the handouts I've created, I've made text boxes that you can take the English and put any language in the world into those handouts and give them to people. Email it to people. This is my mission, is to pay it forward, create a healing ripple. Because once you teach someone, they teach someone, and they teach someone. And the way the brain learns is that if you teach somebody in the next 24 hours, you have about an 85% retention rate of what you've just learned. And it's more enhanced when you put it in your own words. So you teach it the way you teach it, and it will be in here, and you'll be paying forward this gift. Share it globally. Again, thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you, Paul, for coming on today. And as we always say here, thanks to Frank Chili, we'll see you all upstairs. Yes.
Definitely.
And you can, when you go upstairs, you can teach it upstairs. That's it.
Thank you.